One of the frequent questions that arise regarding Kohanim is the question whether a Cohen can attend medical school. Why can't a Cohen attend medical school? Like, what's the issue? So there's a pasuk in the Chumash which tells us that a Cohen cannot come in contact with the dead, with the corpse. So the assumption being in medical school today, that in order to participate in the class, one has to be involved with working on a cadaver on a dead corpse, and therefore, if it involves touching the dead, so then it might be an apparent problem for a Cohen to go to medical school. That being said, maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they might have virtual medical schools with modern technology, and it wouldn't be an issue. There's no issue of a Cohen being a doctor per se. The issue is a Cohen coming in contact with the dead. So right now, perhaps even dental school might be an issue, depending on what one has to do during medical school or dental school, whether you have to actually touch the cadaver, whether you have to touch the corpse or not. Maybe your partner can, but the question is revolving Tumas Mace, and there are the different levels of Tuma. There's an Isser of touching the mace, an Isser of moving the mace, as well as this being in the same room as the mace. So regarding the third one, being in a room with the mace, that's already a dispute in the Talmud and among the Rishonim, whether this applies to is it limited to a Jewish corpse, or does it apply to a non-Jewish corpse? So that's the Machlokas HaRishonim, the Balitosis, the Rambam. I believe the Rambam is lenient in terms of it doesn't apply to Masel, doesn't apply to a non-Jewish corpse. That's a Machlokas HaRishonim. And in Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber writes a Cohen should be Zahir not to go to a non-Jewish cemetery. And the Ramah quotes the Yesh Makilim, there are those who are Meko, but he also says one should be Machmer. So some assume it's a Macholkas Mechaber Ramah. The Mechaber goes with Chumrah that may say Akam Amatami V'olel. Someone would say it's no proof. The reason why you can't go to a non-Jewish cemetery is unfortunately because many Jews are buried in a non-Jewish cemetery. So either way, that's a discussion among the Rishonim, and it's whether a Cohen, we assume a Cohen can't touch or move a corpse, but regarding being in the same room, so that's a Machokas in the Rishonim and the Achronim. So that's one dispute in terms of whether the halacha of Tumas Ohel applies to a non-Jewish corpse. There's another famous Machokas. There's a famous dispute between the Rambam and the Ravid regarding the prohibition of a Cohen to be Mitame Lameis, for a Cohen to come in contact with the dead. In other words, everyone agrees that the pasuk in the Chumash that a Cohen can't come in contact with the dead. What about Bizman Hazeh, that we're all Tamei Mace anyway, because the assumption is that all Kohanim have come in contact with the dead or in some way or another, so they're all Tamei Mace. So now there's a Tamei Mace, and there's no way of becoming pure, Tahar. We don't have the Para Aduma, we don't have the red heifer. So therefore, is there any reason why a Kohen, is there any additional prohibition for a Kohen to come in contact with the dead? He already is Tamei, he's already on the highest level of Tuma, the Avi Avos HaTuma. So what's the harm in him? What's the harm in him touching 5 mesim, 10 mesim, 20 mesim? Once you're Tamei Mace, what's the difference? Yet the Rambam paskins that even though you're Tamei Mace, one is not permitted to come in contact with the dead. Every time you do, you violate another biblical prohibition. The Rambam says that's only as long as you're still involved with the dead, then you're still mechuber or connected with the dead, so then you can touch it 100 times. But once you leave and come back, it's a new prohibition. That's the Rambam is clear. Even Bizman Hazeh, there's a prohibition on a Cohen every time he touches a mace. And the Rabbi disagrees and says that since Bizman Hazeh, a Cohen had Tamea mace anyway, so a Cohen is pater, presumably from Makis, from if he goes ahead and touches additional mace. So based on this, the Mishnah Lamelech, he was talking about being in the business. There's different discussions being in the business of mummies and all that, but the Piskei Tshuva quotes in the Mishnah Lamelech and others that and someone would say based on this Mishnah Lamelech that perhaps based on this Sfek Sveika, maybe Kohanim could enter medical school, because we have one machlokes whether it applies Bizman Hazeh or not. Maybe the machlokes Rambam and Ravid, the Ravid says there's no issue for a Kohen to come in contact with the dead. And then in addition, they have a machlokes Rishonim whether it applies to a non-Jew. So even if you assume like the Rambam's right, but maybe about each time you come in contact with the dead, but as long as you don't have to come in contact with the body, you just be in the same room, so maybe you can rely on those Rishonim who say that it's okay. So based on that, they want to be matir Sfek Sveika. However, that's far from simple, because the Mishnah Malach himself and others reject that. It's not so simple. The Ravid says it's mutter. The Ravid might say it might not violate, it still might even be the putter from Makis. You're exempt from getting a good old-fashioned whooping, but you aren't necessarily exempt. It still could be an Issa Daraisa, it still could be in violation of a biblical prohibition. In fact, the Ravid elsewhere in the Tamea writes that it's an Issa Daraisa. Even the Ravid agrees, it's just this might be a Petor Makis. So hence, therefore, based on the Sfek Sveika, many don't like it because the Ravid himself doesn't seem to hold that it's mutter. It's just that it might not be a Makis, but it's still also, it's kind of like the machlokes, we have by the Rambam and Rabbi, perhaps by the Kedushas HaMikdash today. The Ravid holds it's clearly the Kedusha applies, and it's a discussion what the Ravid holds. That he says maybe you're not chayiv kares, but so then you have a whole gamut. He's saying it's mutter, or it still could be an Issa Daraisa. You're not chayiv kares. Similarly here, it could be saying it might not be chayiv makis. The fact you don't have a penalty doesn't mean it's mutter. Like there could be an Issa Ritzicha, if they're killing a treifa, killing someone who's or killing someone who's about to be killed. So another a bar ketela, someone who's considered dead, so might not violate, or killing a fetus, you might not have capital punishment, but doesn't mean you don't violate Issa Ritzicha. So the onesh, the fact it's not an onesh, a punishment, doesn't mean that the Issa is not there. So similarly, so therefore it's difficult to rely on this Sfek Sveika, since it's not even clear the Ravid holds, the Ravid disagrees with the Rambam. Others suggest maybe it's a heter pikuach nefesh. It's true it's an Issa Daraisa to come in contact with the dead, but pikuach nefesh supersedes all, like Tosas writes. The Gemara in Bava Metzia talks about Pinchas zu Eliyahu. You know, Eliyahu was Pinchas, and the Gemara wanted to know what was Eliyahu doing in the Beis HaKfaros. How could he go ahead in the Beis HaKfaros if it's also for a Cohen to Mitame? So, and we know a story in Tanakh where Eliyahu resurrected one of the kids was the son of the Almana, the widow, and therefore he did Chiyas HaMeisim. So the question is, how could, if Eliyahu is a Cohen, how could he be Mitame Mace in order to save the child? So there are many answers in terms of, and by Elisha, maybe the child wasn't Jewish, and then the assumption he wasn't being touched. Maybe the child never died. Maybe the child was a tzaddik, tzaddik ain't no metamim, or Tosafos says it's pikuach nefesh. The question is maybe it's pikuach nefesh on the mother, or whoever it might have been, but Toz is right, it's pikuach nefesh. The question is, we have a general rule, you're allowed to be docha and isser if it's pikuach nefesh now. You can't do something that's pikuach nefesh later on. Like the famous Jew with the Nodid Yehuda regarding autopsy. They had to do an autopsy, to do an autopsy, you need a chol milafan, you need a chol in front of you. The fact that you might need, that it might help you down the line 20 years from now, that's not enough of a heter. There are only two heterim for autopsies, and that's one is if you want to put the murder victim behind bars, so therefore you need to get an autopsy, that's considered covered ames, not nivell ames. Or if you walk into a room, walk into a hospital, someone dies from this infectious disease, no one has any idea what happened, and someone else with the same infectious disease walks in, so then you're permitted to do an autopsy in order to save the other person's life, but that's a chol milafanav. Of course, today, with modern technology, we might be able to expand without being a sick person in front of you, but nevertheless, wherever we expand it to, you still need a chola, you have to have someone in front of you for the heter. We point out, so to here, it's difficult to say, definitely during medical school, in terms of it's pikuach nefesh. So others don't like that. There was a famous heter of Rav Goren, one of the chief rabbis in Eretz Yisrael. He wanted to say based on another halacha. There's a halacha of charav aleyu kochalo, that there's a halacha which we paskin like that a sword gets the same if a sword in war anything metal touches a mace, so it takes on the avi abos atum. It takes on the level of the avi abos atuma. Yet nevertheless, the Ramah brings down that yesh meikilin, that a Cohen could come in contact with this ring or something metal. And because I think Rav Chaim Cohen writes, which Cohen hasn't come in contact with some metal that's come in contact in the same room as the dead? So the minig is, the halacha seems to be mekel regarding a Cohen coming in contact with a charav or a kochal. Even though it's a din of avi abos tuma, nevertheless, it doesn't transmit tuma. And similarly, we have halacha Cohen not coming in contact with a goses. A goses is someone who's alive, but he's not in. He's going to die soon. So therefore, I have some say it's an issur daraisa. So Achronim point out because the issur isn't becoming tamei, or else because the person's not dead. The issur is karf as gomeis. The concern is the person's going to die, and you're putting yourself in a situation where you're going to become tamei mei. So it's this karf as gomeis. It's an issur daraisa, not an issur drabanan. So what's this halacha based on? Apparently, the issur is not the issur. So therefore, a Cohen can, because the issur is karvas gomeis, but the ring has nothing to do with the dead person. So Rav Goring suggested perhaps a Yisrael should go to a cemetery, take the Cohen's ring, or some other thing the Cohen's wearing, and then the Cohen could wear it since he's allowed to, because charav kochalo, and then he could go to medical school, because what's the difference? He's tamei meis anyway now, so therefore there's no problem. The problem with that Rav Shachta didn't like is the whole heter with the ring is that the issur isn't, we see from the Ramah that the fact that he's meiko, that a Cohen could come in contact with charav, the issur isn't the tumas meis, the issur is the scarf, it's coming closer to the meis. So therefore by putting a ring on, you're not coming closer to any dead body. However, if you're going to take the ring now and then go and touch dead bodies during medical school, so it's a target disaster. You go against the whole reason of the whole heter of karikal. So Rav Shachta and many others don't like the heter. Although I spoke to someone who, Cohen, who's a doctor now, I asked him, did he ever ask anyone in terms of medical school? He said he sent a couple of shilas to different gedolim. I think the only one he said that got back to him was this 3 and he said it's something about as long as you don't actually come in contact with the dead. I don't know if he said I don't know whether you should use a stick. I heard someone said Rav Pais one of the Gedolim in Toronto. He said something about gloves. In other words, I don't know if it's practical anyway, even if you cannot touch it. But again, so the pashtus is, as Rav Moshe writes, Rav Soloveitchik, and the Boskim is basically, and there's a general rule, it's usher for a Cohen to come in contact with the dead, and hence that would preclude him from medical school. On a personal level, if everyone's situation has to speak to the local posek and see in your situation if there's any heter for you to go to medical school or dentist school and become a doctor. In fact, what's interesting is a machlokas in the Gemara, in the Rishonim. There are different levels of tuma. There's tuma is an issue of actually touching the corpse. There's a tumas maga. There's tumas masa, moving the corpse. And in addition, there's tumas ohel, being in the same area, being in the same room as the corpse. So regarding the first two, lahalacha, everyone agrees it applies ben Yisrael ben la'akum. It applies to a Jew. I wouldn't say everyone, and some Rishonim say, on all three it might not apply to la'akum. But halacha l'maisa, everyone agrees that there's no distinction between a akum and a Jew. The isser of tumas maga and masa apply. The major machlokas v'halacha is regarding tumas ohel, being in the same room as a corpse of a non-Jewish corpse. Everyone agrees a Jewish corpse is mitame ba'ohel. What about it? That's a machlokas in the Gemara. I think it's a machlokas Rambam and the Bali Tosis. The Gemara in Bava Metzia talks about they find Eliyahu in the Beis HaKfaros. The Gemara at the end of Bava Metzia. Actually, it's fine, yeah. And we have a tradition, Pinchas zu Eliyahu, or Eliyahu zu Pinchas. That Eliyahu is Pinchas, and we know Pinchas was a Cohen. So Eliyahu was a Cohen, so Tosis is by. What is Eliyahu doing in the Beis HaKvaros? He's a Cohen. So there are many answers given. That's a separate share in its own right. In terms of that whole parasha in Navi. Sorry, it's not Shmuel, but it's in Malachim. It's definitely a major topic for us about what was the heter for Eliyahu to be mitame lamesim. How did he help the ben d'almana, the one who apparently died? What was his heter to violate the rights of Tumas Kohanim? Remind me, I owe you that one. So that's Tosis. So Tosis points out that the isser, that the isser applies to Tumas Ohel as well. I think it's the Rambam sheet, if I remember correctly, unless I'm mixing up the two, but I think the Rambam says the isser of Tumas Ohel does not apply to an Akum. So how is it brought down in Shulchan Aruch? That's an interesting lesson in Shulchan Aruch. The Machaber brings down something along the lines of Yesh Li Zahir, that Cohen should not go to a non-Jewish cemetery. The Ramah brings down V'yesh Mekilin, but he also says the minhag is not, you shouldn't do it either. So basically, there's more room for, if you're in Ashkenaz, to be Mekel than you are for Tzfar, because even though it's not so simple, some people learn the Machaber saying he paskins that it's Usher. I don't say, I'm not saying it's not true, but it's not black and white, because I saw some Achronim bring down the fact that Shulchan Aruch, so the Shulchan Aruch basically paskins you shouldn't go, a Kohen should not go to a non-Jewish cemetery. So Pasha should say it's a raya, the Machaba paskins, like those Rishonim, that Meisi Akum Mitame Yohel. Others say, unfortunately, it's not a good raya, because unfortunately, in a non-Jewish cemetery are many Jews, or some Jews, and maybe that's why the Mechaber is Machmir, because even during his time, unfortunately, Jews get buried in a non-Jewish cemetery. Or you could say, so that's not, you can ding zach on the raya. So the Ramah basically writes, Me'ikar Adin, he seems to paskin it's mutter, but he says not to anyway. So that's the Lashon HaMachaber. So that's the Machlokes over there regarding whether Tumas Ohel applies to a Kohen or not, whether Tumas Ohel of a non-Jew applies to a Kohen. That's one Machlokes. The Machaber seems to say no. The Ramas Meikar didn't seem to be Meiko, but he says a Cohen shouldn't do it anyway. Cohen, since it's a Deraisa, he should be Machmir, but Meikar did it's Mutter. And there's another famous Machlokes regarding the Rambam and the Ravid, regarding Bizman Hazeh. Everyone knows there's an issue of Tumas Mesa Bizman Hazeh. I mean, everyone knows that a Kohen can't be Matame Lames today. However, the Rishonim discuss, what about Bizman Hazeh? Bizman Hazeh, we don't have a Para Adum anymore. So, now that every Kohen, as Tosas writes, every Kohen today has had to come in contact with some form of the mace, so we assume all Kohanim today are Tamei Mesim. So if they're all Tamei Mesim, and once you Tamei Meis, you reach to Avi Avos Hatuma, so what's the difference? So why it should be a problem today? Let the Kohen be Matame Lameis, because it's also anyway, because what's the problem anyway? Because he's already Tamei. Yet the Rambam, even though Rambam entertains the question, that he says, nevertheless, even though it's true that the Tamei Meis, nevertheless it's an Isser Daraisa every time a Kohen is Matame, a separate Isser Daraisa. And in fact, that's what he writes. The Rambam writes, if Kolzman you're being Osek in the mace, so then you can touch the mace 100 times. But once you leave and come back, each time you come back and Posek can come back, you chayav makas, you violated Isser Daraisa each time you do it. And the Ravid disagrees. What he disagrees on is a point of contention, but the Ravid writes, and he's cholik on the Rambam, he writes he's putter. And he's putter from makas. He's putter, there is no chayav makas at all on every additional time, because he's Tamei Meis anyway, so what's the difference? What's the Lamdas shot in the Rambam? So it seems to be like we discussed in the morning, Rav Shechter's Yesod, Rav Chanan Wasserman's, that it seems to be that it's not result-oriented because you're not adding any more Tumah. What's the Svarah speed? It's a special issue with Karvas Lameis. Even if it's like the case with the fetus, even if you assume Tumah, Tahara Balua, but we said according to some, it's also to Cohen, it's also for the fetus to be Matame, to come in contact, even though he's not being Matame. So that fits in with the Rambam Shita. So the Piskei Tshuva, I think, quotes the Mishnah Lamelech, and quotes, he wants to say, it's a svek, so we have a svek sveika. In other words, the question is, can a Cohen be in the same room as a non-Jewish corpse? So the Mishnah Melech, I think he's discussing also, if I remember correctly, they talk about the mummy trade, which involved dealing dealing with mummies. Could a Kohen be involved in the mummy trade, something like that, or making it up? Someone talks about it, I think it's the Mishnah Melech. So he writes, well, number one, we have a Machlokas, Rambam and Ravid, whether there's a problem for a Kohen at all to be in the same, even according to the Rambam, you can even touch a mace. It's a Machlokas, Rambam and Ravid, whether you can actually touch a mace the second time because you're Tommy anyway. So that's one Machlokas. The Rambam says that this is the Raisa. What's called the Ravid saying it's mutter. We'll come back to that Ravid in a second, but if you want to assume like the Mishnah Melech does, that the Ravid holds it's mutter. So number one, you have a Machlokas, Rambam and Ravid, whether if it's Manazek, Kohanim, or Muzarim at all. And even if you want to assume we pass them like the Rambam, even the Rambam's modeh, that Tumas Ohel is that we pass them the Meisi Akim is a Metame, ain't no Metame B'Ohel. So again, I guess we're assuming they're not actually touching the mummies. So based on the Svek Sveika, one could be matir someone in the mummy trade. So based on this Svek Sveika, those who want to take it to a more modern day equivalent of a mummy trade is going to medical school. So some perhaps want to suggest maybe a Kohen could go to medical school based on the following Svek Sveika. One, it's a Machlokas Rambam and Ravid, whether you can touch, you can metaba b'mag at all. And even if you want to go with chumrah, like the Rambam, but then you have the other machlokas about whether Meiti Akam Matam. Again, this is assuming in a medical school you wouldn't have to actually touch the actual dead body there. You know, assuming your chavrusa will take care of it for you, assuming the teacher's okay with it. Let me just point out, by medical school, it's nothing to do with medical school. Maybe 10 years from now we'll have virtual medical school, and it won't. There's nothing wrong with the Cohen being a doctor. The issue is him coming in is the way medical school is set up today, that he has to come in contact with the dead. That's the problem. So if in 20 years from now they have everything set up on your iPad, so then it wouldn't be a shiloh at all. Again, I think medical schools are against it because they think you get more out of it in real life. So that's why maybe they'll change the shita. Maybe they'll change the shita and say that, you know, that computers are just as good. And for that matter, dentist school would be the same problem. It all depends on what they do. I don't know the Matthias. Depends what they do in your medical school, what they do in your dental school, for that matter. Any other school, any other training that you'd have to come in contact with the dead would be the same issue. It's nothing to do with a doctor or a dentist. I'm just saying, hypothetically in business, you had to touch the dead body. You couldn't do that either. It's not a matter, it's nothing, we're not discriminating against medical school. That's just the reality in most cases. So we want to say, so assuming you wouldn't have to touch the actual corpse, so then you have the svek sveika to rely on. Or B, the Mishnah Melech himself, or the Nodid Yehuda, or the Piskei Tshuva themselves say, well, but the Mishnah Melech, I think, was chosen because he said he found the Rabbi in another place, in Tamim Deim, where he's moded to the Rambam. That it's an Issa Daraisa, even Mizman Hazeh, for a Cohen to come in contact with a corpse. And obviously what the Rambam means is pater mimakas. It doesn't mean it's pater as it's mutter, but it means that you can, in other words, there's two different points. You can be violating Issa Daraisa and have no onish. I'd say killing a fetus. You might violate an Issa Ritzicha, but there's no capital punishment. The onish, you kill someone who's nigmar adin, you might not be liable to capital punishment, but still over an Issa Ritzicha. You don't have to go hand in hand. So therefore, so too here, the Rabbi says you can still be over an Issa Daraisa, and yet not Chayimakas. We'll get to it hopefully Wednesday night when we discuss Yom Yerushalayim. We tie in Svira and Yom Yerushalayim on the Wednesday night shir, and we'll get into a Rabbi which has to do with the Makam HaMikdash. It's the same idea where he's cholek on the Rambam, but exactly what is he cholek? That's the same. You have different sheets in the Ravid, whether he holds it's mutter or he holds it's just an isser, but there's no chayav. You're not chayav kares. We'll get into that Wednesday night. So either way, so based on the svek sveika, so some want to be mako regarding Kohanim and medical school. But that's difficult because really the Ravid doesn't. If you look at the Ravid, it really doesn't hold its mutter. Even the Ravid's mode that it's usher. It's just don't. So therefore, there goes the svek sveika. So there's really not much to rely on. Others say maybe the heter pikuach nefesh. But pikuach nefesh we know only applies when there's pikuach nefesh now. To put yourself, to say I'm violating Issa Daraisa now because of pikuach nefesh later on, that's not so pashut. In other words, like we have the famous note of Yehuda about the heter of autopsy. That normally there's an Issa Daraisa to do an autopsy because it's nivel hameis. But the two exceptions to the rule, when we permit an autopsy, we don't permit nivel hameis. It just wouldn't be nivel hameis. One case is where someone's murdered, and the only way to put the guy behind bars or kill the guy is to do an autopsy. So we assume that's covered hameis. It's covered hameis to do an autopsy so you can put the guy behind bars. Number one, to avenge the dead, but also you shouldn't go around killing other people. Or the other reason is, let's say there's an infectious disease, like the movie Outbreak, Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo with the monkey spreading AIDS. Yes or no? You with me on that or not? So the guy, so someone comes into a hospital, they have no idea, some infectious disease. They try to cure him, they have no clue he died. and then 5 minutes later, or 5 minutes before that, someone with the same looking disease walks in. So since it's a chol milafanav, if someone is right in front of you who now needs to find, you could save someone's life, then we've been if by doing an autopsy, you might be able to find out what's wrong and then find a cure. So that's considered okay also. Again, today with modern technology, you can extend what a chol milafanav means. 1,000 years ago, maybe it meant literally in the next bed, or else you wouldn't even know the person exists. But today, someone could be in Israel, someone could be in Toronto. That could be a chol milafanav today if you could figure out, but the principle is the same. The application, whatever, with modern technology, could be a big nafkamina lalach in terms of pragmatics, but the principle is the same. So too here, we assume you need pikuach nefesh to be matir, and this is the raisa. So many said you can't say, well, as Ramosha writes, you can't say, well, in the future it's going to be pikuach nefesh, I'm going to save lives. You have to be pikuach nefesh now. So that's a difficult heter to rely on, because it's not pikuach nefesh now. Another famous heter of Rav Shlomo Gar, I think it was Rav Shlomo, Rav Garin, one of the chief rabbis in Israel. Is that his first name or not? So he has a famous heter. What's this heter? There's a principle of charav areyu kacholo, that let's say a sword touches a dead body. Let's say a sword touches a dead body. So the lach is the sword has the same status as avi abos atuma. That's a special lach, and the Ramah brings down what mekel for a Cohen. A Kohen's allowed to touch a cherav, even though it's the avi abos atuma, but whatever the reason is, as we'll see, we'll explain in a minute, a Kohen's permitted to touch it, because I think as the Chaim Cohen writes, it's impossible for a Kohen to be muzhar in this. How could anyone not have some medal that someone died and came in tumas oel? So that's the special halacha of karu kacholo. And what's it based on? It makes sense again according to Rav Shechter's mahalach, that because you're not being makabes karav lameis, in fact, the fact that the sword touching me, I'm not coming any closer to the dead. The issur isn't the result, but the issur is the miskar of lameis. So comes over Agarin and says, I have an idea. A Cohen should give his ring to a Yisrael or some metal piece he wears. Let him go to the cemetery. He'll bring it back. It's Charav Kucholel. He'll put it on. He's allowed to. And then he can go to the medical school with the ring on his hand, and therefore he doesn't have to worry. So what's the problem with that? Rav Shechter didn't like it for the following reason. He says, because what's the whole heter of the Ramah of Cherehu Kacholo? Because the issur isn't the issur of Tumas Meis, the issur is you're not being a scar of Lameis. But the whole point here is, the whole reason it's okay of Cherehu Kacholo is you're not being a scar of Lameis, but not by going to medical school, by coming in contact with the corpse, you are being a scar of Lameis. So Rav Shechter thinks it's the Tartei Desastre. The whole heter is based on the fact that you're not going near the mace, so he thinks he hasn't like Rav Garin's heter at all. And therefore, the classical psak over the years, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Selevan, I think the Rav said over it's a pasuk in Chumash, I'm not going to find a heter to go. Again, so the classical poskim seem to assume it's a problem. The way medical schools are set up today, it's a problem for a Cohen to go to medical school. It's a different child. Once a Cohen already is a doctor, that's a different child. It's already a done deal. But for Cohen to go to medical school, so the general psak is, it seems to be problematic. But as always, everyone speaks to their own. Everyone speaks to their own local posting. If they have their own personal shaila, they might have different. Every shaila gets as a person to know to it. Speak to your local rav and see in your case maybe there is some type of heter in that scenario. But that's those are some of the potential heterim of Kohanim in medical school. And once someone told me they asked this 3-day Aish, they sent the letters and he said as long as you don't touch the body, you use sticks and stuff. Again, I don't know how practical. I think he's a doctor now. He told me he wasn't too practical, that advice, because really it didn't help, because I think you have to actually touch it. I think someone told me also, I don't, Rev Price, the one in Toronto, some head about using gloves. It turns out, again, I'm just hearing like you have gloves. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, but that, something that came here around, we'll have to go into the discussion more. Parshas Naso deals with the mitzvah of Birkas Cohanim, the mitzvah of the Kohanim blessing the people. And most authorities believe, Bizman Hazeh as well, even in our day, the mitzvah of Birkas Cohanim is still biblical in nature. There's an interesting shita of Rabbi Yaakov Emden and others that wants to say that Birkas Cohanim is only D'Rabbanan today. Why would Birkas Cohanim only be D'Rabbanan? So Rabbi Yaakov Emden explains because the bracha of Birkas Cohanim is given in conjunction with Aaron bringing karbanos. And since we don't have karbanos today, we don't have sacrifices today, so therefore Birkas Cohanim is only D'Rabbanan. Well, we pass in Birkas Cohanim is Daraisa. It's biblical. How do we explain Rabbi Yaakov? And because, as the Gemara says in many places, and Rav Selevan explained, Tefillah keneged karbanos. It's a din daraisa. And therefore, we dafka say Birkas Cohanim in the context of our Shmona Esrei. Why are we doing Birkas Cohanim in the middle of Shmona Esrei? We don't eat the matzah in the middle of Shmona Esrei. It must be that there's a link. We specifically put Birkas Cohanim in our tefillah to keep it in the context of karbanos, and hence Birkas Cohanim is a mitzvah min Torah. So most poskim assume the mitzvah for a Cohen to bless the people is a mitzvah min Torah, which leads us to a contemporary shaila, and today that since 1948, it comes up even more. It's Israeli soldiers in the army came up before because Jewish soldiers fought in other armies. But the question is, a Cohen Shaharag, a Cohen that killed, a soldier that killed during battle, is he still permitted to do Birkas Cohanim? What's the source that a Cohen Shaharag, a Cohen that kills, cannot do Birkas Cohanim? The Gemara in Brachas on Lamed Beis Amid Beis points out from a pasuk in Yeshayahu that Hashem basically, if our hands are filled with blood, God basically ignores our prayers. And the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch paskin this way lahalacha that a Kohen Shaharag, a Kohen that kills, can no longer do Birkas Cohanim. So that's on the normal scenario, a Kohen kills. Are there any exceptions to this rule that when a Kohen Shaharag, could we limit the ruling in Yeshayahu to something else or not? So there will be different opinions on the matter. Rav Moshe Feinstein writes that to him it seems obvious to him that if a soldier kills in war, it does not disqualify him from Birkas Cohanim. Why? Because he quotes from the Pri Chadash that talks about a different case. We know that there's something we call in halacha the big three. There are three, normally in Judaism, v'chai bahem. The mitzvah is to live by it and not die by it. So therefore, usually, we say better to desecrate the Shabbos, go to the hospital and keep many more, and get it better so you can keep many more. But the three exceptions to the rule. Someone puts a gun to your head and says, worship idols, commit adultery, or murder someone else, so then you have a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. What happens if someone can't withstand the test of they're going to be killed if they don't do it, and they go ahead and they kill someone? So the Pri Chadash writes that he may still continue to do Birkas Cohanim, because even though he did something wrong in that case, so even though the Cohen did the wrong thing by not giving up his life, he's not labeled a rotseach, he's not labeled a murderer, because he did it under duress. So Ramosha writes, if the Pri Chadash writes that a Cohen that kills someone under duress doesn't disqualify him from Birkas Cohanim, how much more, and he says that's the normative halacha, how much more so if a soldier is fighting in a war and he's doing the right thing, that he's not disqualified. So according to Rav Moshe, it seems to be pretty clear a Cohen can continue doing Birkas Cohanim. There's another famous shita of the Rabbi Eliezer Waldenberg in the Tzitz Eliezer, and he focuses on the difference between killing a Jew versus killing a guy, a Nachri. In other words, even though halacha labels you a rotzeach, a murderer, whether you kill a Jew or a non-Jew, and perhaps it's even a bigger chil Hashem sometimes when you kill a non-Jew, notwithstanding the severity of it, the Tzitz Eliezer writes that since the pasuk we learn out in Yeshayahu is talking about killing a Jew, so it's just a special limit we learn out. It's a special limit from that pasuk that only if you kill a Jew you disqualify yourself from Birkas Cohanim, but if you kill a non-Jew you're not. So that's the psak of Rabbi Eliezer Waldenberg, although many later Achronim dispute that distinction, and it doesn't make a difference. There's no difference whether you kill a Jew or a non-Jew. However, that's the psak of the Tzitz Eliezer, only if you kill another Jew, but not if you kill a Nachri. And the third approach is the approach of Avaja Yosef, Chacham Avaja, that he says that since an Israeli soldier is doing a mitzvah, but whether it's halachically defined as a Machametz mitzvah or not, that's a separate discussion, but he's doing a mitzvah protecting the people, he's saving the country. So if you're involved with the mitzvah, so therefore that doesn't disqualify you from Birkas Cohanim, because you're protecting the lives of all these innocent civilians. And in fact, the simple reading of the Shulchan Aruch seems to support Avaja Yosef's position, because the Shulchan Aruch paskins, what happens if a Cohen, when he's involved, Cohen who's a mohel, he's involved obviously with the milah because he's a mohel, what happens if he goes ahead and what happens if he goes ahead and kills an infant accidentally? To the Shulchan Aruch paskins, he's still permitted to do Birkas Cohanim. So we see the fact that he was involved in the milah and he killed someone doesn't disqualify him. So therefore, so too, Birkas Cohanim is a mitzvah, but the Israeli soldiers involved in the mitzvah, so too, he's not disqualified. In fact, the post can bring down the Magen Avram gives that's not the only reason given why he could. One is that the Cohen intended to fulfill the mitzvah. Perhaps also the child was a nefal; he wasn't a viable vlad, or you never know for sure. Maybe the baby died of other unrelated causes. So the first reason is the one that relates to us with the soldier. But the bottom line is that we have Rav Moshe Feinstein who is lenient based on the fact that the soldier is killing under duress, so he's not labeled Rotzeach, therefore he can continue Birkas Cohanim. You have the heter of Tzitz Eliezer, killing a knucker, assuming that you're not going to kill any Yidden either. And you have the heter of Aji Yosef, that since you're involved in a mitzvah, so if you're involved in a mitzvah, you had the good intentions, therefore it doesn't disqualify you. On the other side of the coin, Rav Shachter in Nefesh Harav, page 132, he quotes Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik, and he rules differently. He rules that a Kohen Shaharag, someone who kills in war, he is disqualified from doing the Birkas Cohanim. And he says, look at David HaMelech. David HaMelech was disqualified from building the Beis HaMikdash. Again, whether he's disqualified from building the Beis HaMikdash. He says, well, the blood is on your hand, and we know David fought all these Muhammads with Shem Mitzvah. So therefore, he doesn't accept doing it under duress like Rav Moshe isn't. It's still considered you're labeled a Rotzeach. And as well, perhaps there's a Zohar in Parshas Pinchas, which some explain that the whole incident with Pinchas and Zimri, that Pinchas became disqualified because he killed, so therefore the Brisi Shalom was to give it back to him. So therefore, that's the psak of Rav Soloveitchik, even though they say Rav Aaron Lichtenstein said he must not have made that psak very often, because Rav Aaron said he never heard that psak, and the psak in his yeshiva in Gush at Zion is that he permits the Kohanim to go up and do the duchen. That seems to be the meaning, and in fact, as Rav Moshe Sternbach puts in Shuvas Rabin Haggaz, that as well, the practice in England as well was to permit Kohanim who fought in World War I to participate in Birkas Cohanim, even though they might have killed other Yidden, because unfortunately in the opposing armies there were Jews as well. So this, the meaning seems to be that a Kohen Shaharag, an Israeli soldier in the army, a Cohen who kills, it does not disqualify him from Birkas Cohanim.